Okay, Math 9s, welcome back. In this video, we'll look at other forms of equations for linear relations. Specifically, we'll look at equations of horizontal, vertical, and oblique lines. Okay, we'll start off with an example here where we have two integers that have a sum of 3, complete a table of values, and then graph the relation. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick some inputs. We know that x is now our input. I'm just going to pick some values that'll give us a starting point. And these are all just random numbers. Okay, and then for the y, our output, I'm going to think about, okay, well, what number do I need to add to 2 so that our sum is going to be 3? So that number would be 1. So, and over here, this sum, if we add 2 plus 1, we're going to get 3. Okay, so 4, the number that we have to add to it would be negative 1. To negative 3, we would have to add 6. To 0, we'd have to get 3, and then for negative 1 would be 4. So if you add up each line here, 4 plus negative 1 is 3, negative 3 plus 6 is 3, 0 plus, oops, I made a mistake, this should be 3, so 0 plus 3 is 3, and then negative 1 plus 4 is 3. So our sum is 3, and there are two integers that have a sum of 3. Okay, so now we'll just go and plot these points. So 2, 1. Okay, is there? We have 4, negative 1. Okay, negative 3, 6. So now we're going over to negative 3, and then up to 6. There's negative 3, 6. Okay, and then 0, 3, and negative 1, 4. And these things all form a straight line. Now I'm not going to join this line because we're instructed here that we're talking about two integers. So integers, we don't have decimals when we're talking about integers. So we're only talking about those, just the dots. And this is, just a reminder, this is a discrete graph because we're only plotting the points only. Points only, as opposed to plotting the entire line. Okay, so this is an example of an oblique. This is an oblique line. Okay, it just means that it's at an angle. Okay, if we were going to come up with an equation for this, we could say, okay, well, our two integers, x plus y, that's going to be equal to 3. There is an equation of a line. This is the equation of the line in standard form. So this is standard form. And we'll talk more about this in more detail later on, but I'm just going to introduce it now. This is standard form. And then if we were to move our x over to the other side by subtracting x on both sides, those are going to cancel out. We're left with y is equal to negative x plus 3. This is our equation in slope-intercept form, where we have this 1 in here. That is going to represent this negative 1. It's going to represent our slope. Slope is negative 1, and our y-intercept is positive 3. So that's our positive 3 is our y-intercept. Okay, so what that means for our slope is just, hey, that's negative 1. We rise negative 1, and then we run 1. So to get each point, we're just going to go down 1 or negative 1. We're going to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. Okay, maybe I'll just draw little triangles here. Hope this isn't too much information, but we're going to be covering this stuff shortly, so I thought I'd just mention it here now. Okay, those lines all form a straight line. Again, that is an oblique line because it is at an angle. Okay, scrolling down to the bottom two examples, now we look at a couple of different types of equations. So in example 2, we're told that, or asked to graph x is equal to 3. So in our table of values, what we're told is that every point is going to have an x coordinate of 3. So we're just going to populate that. Our inputs or our x values is 3. So it doesn't matter what I pick for my y's. It doesn't matter what I pick. I can pick a bunch of different points, but all that matters is that our x coordinate is 3. Now if we go and plot that, if we go and plot 3, negative 2, we go and plot 3, 0, 3, positive 2, and 3, 4, we find that we have a straight line, but the straight line is special in that it's a vertical line. Okay, so this is a vertical line. Okay, and this will happen whenever we have x is equal to some number. Okay. If we go down to the bottom example, or example number 3, here we're told that, hey, all of our y values now are something that is a set value. So we're told that, hey, our y coordinate, or our y value, is always going to be -2. Again, I could just pick a bunch of x points. Okay, so that we have an x coordinate for each one of these. Now, if we go, our first point is -2, -2. Next one is 0, -2, then 2, -2, and 4, -2. And what we get is, this time we get a horizontal line. Horizontal line. And this will happen whenever we have y is equal to some number. Okay? If you're just given y is equal to some number, it will always give you a horizontal line. Okay? Okay, so flipping over to the back side. Okay, if we just summarize these 3 types of lines, our first one is oblique. An oblique line is just a line that's at an angle. This is a line that will have a non-zero slope. Non-zero slope. Okay, and again, we'll come back to that in more detail in just a little bit here. If we have x is equal to some number, this is going to be a vertical line. Okay, so this is going to have an undefined slope. Okay, and all points are going to be, the x coordinate is just going to be that number that you're given, and then a bunch of, doesn't matter what your y is, the x coordinate is always going to be that number that you're given. Okay, if you have y is equal to some number, that is just telling you that is a horizontal line. Okay, your slope of a horizontal line is 0. Okay, and all of your points are going to have that y coordinate this time will be that number, and your x coordinate will be a bunch of others that you can put in there. Okay. Okay, so one last example here, example number 4. If we consider the following line, 3x minus 2y is equal to 6. So first of all, we're asked what type of line is it. So if we have both x's and y's in an equation, this is going to be an oblique line. Okay, and this line, so an oblique line means that it's going to have some non-zero slope. It's going to be a line that's at an angle. Either it's angled upwards or downwards. Okay, so if we're asked to then create a table of values for this graph, okay, what we're given here is a few points. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. What we have is a few points given to us, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to label these points 1, 2, and 3, and for each one of those points, I'm going to take whatever coordinate I'm given, I'm going to plug it into this equation, and I'm going to solve for the other one. Here's what that looks like. In the first point, we're given that our y value is 0. So 3x minus 2 times 0 has to equal 6. This whole thing, 0 times 2 is 0. So 3 times a number is equal to 6. 3 times a number is equal to 6. What does that number have to be? Well, we can solve for that. And that's going to be x is equal to 2. Okay, so when we put a value of y of 0 into this equation, the number that matches it is going to be x is equal to 2. Okay, if we do that again for the second point, this time we'll have our 0 value is going to be for the x, so 3 times 0 minus 2 times y is equal to 6. Now we have -2 times something is equal to 6, and we can solve or think about what that y value is going to be. Your y is going to be equal to -3. So when we put an x value of 0 into this equation, we get a y value of -3. Okay. Finally, our third point is where we have an x value of -2. So 3 times that x value of -2 minus 2y is equal to 6. So 3 times -2 is -6. Minus 2y is equal to 6. Then we can do a little algebra to figure out what that y coordinate is going to be. So -2 times y is equal to 12. So -2 times what is going to be 12? That number is going to be y is equal to negative 6. Okay, so again, the number that matches an x of negative 2 is the y-coordinate would be negative 6. Okay, so now we have 3 different points we can plot in here. We have 2, 0, there's our first point. And then we're going to have 0, negative 3, here's our second point. And then finally we have negative 2, negative 6 is our third point. Okay, so for each line, your points have to fit, or your points have to work in your equation. Okay, so that's a big idea to keep in mind. Okay, so our big idea for this chapter is to look at, or to be able to recognize, horizontal, vertical, and oblique lines. And also to create a table of values and a graph from an equation. Okay, hope that gets you going with different forms of lines. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.